I had the distinct pleasure of having a conversation with Jordan Gross. Jordan is a Northwestern and Kellogg School of Management graduate. He's a startup founder and a two-time TEDx speaker, as well as a #1 best-selling author who has two books out, Getting Comfy and The Journey to Cloud Nine. The Journey to Cloud Nine provides a new approach to personal development, and by using a fictional storytelling, he reveals some of life's most meaningful principles. Jordan has been blazing new trails for people around the world, and he cannot wait to share this with all of you. Now, during this video, you'll notice that we've had some technical difficulties. And so, while the internet and the Wi-Fi wasn't cooperating with us the other day, we were able to get back on another call in a few days and finish our conversation. Jordan has tremendous resilience, and I'm glad that I got to speak with him, and I want to thank him for hanging in there and completing the process with me. Thank you, Jordan, and I think you'll be pleased with this interview. Hey, everybody, my name is Kirby Angles, and I'm here with Jordan Gross. Jordan is a two-time author and TEDx speaker, and I just want to welcome Jordan to the show. Jordan, why don't you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now?
Hey Kirby, how's it going? Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really grateful to be spending a little bit of time with you and get to share some insights with your audience. So, what I do, I don't like to just say what exactly I do. I help people use their imagination and their creativity in order to live the life of their dreams, right? And I do that through writing, speaking, coaching, editing, podcasting, all of these different means, right? So I wouldn't say that there's one specific thing I do. I've written books, I write articles. If I had to put a label on it, I'd say author, I guess. But the ultimate goal is, I call it imagitivitation, right? Imagination, interpretation, creativity, and implementation. And I use those four key pillars to help other people go about making a change and living a life that they truly want to live.
That's amazing, and that's extremely important here, and that's something that I've really wanted to focus in on as I
Uh,
became a coach. I know that you also have a coaching certification through, I believe it was Marshall Goldsmith, and really just helping people find that passion, that purpose, and that fulfillment in their life, where they can find meaning in what they do. So, how about you start right
yeah.
there and kind of tell us a little bit about that process, and uh, that certification and why you decided to do that and where that's taken you from here.
Absolutely. So to backtrack just a little bit, Kirby, I left my corporate job in November 2017, and January 2018, I self-published. So 2 months later, I self-published my first book, and it was called Getting Comfy: Your Morning Guide to Daily Happiness. It was pretty prescriptive self-help manual about my morning routine and why it was good for overcoming stress and anxiety when the alarm clock goes off. And basically, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no plan. I didn't know that you could write a book and then become a coach, or could write a book and become a speaker or anything like that. So there was a lot of uncertainty with what I was doing going forward. But I immersed myself in the world of personal development, and I found out what I could do. And I really resonated with the Marshall Goldsmith stakeholder centered coaching, because the story is that, the Myers-Briggs personality test?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So when I was doing my master's program in management studies, I remember doing the Myers-Briggs with my classmates, and we had an instructor who was a professor in leadership. And as we were discussing the results, I kind of raised my hand and said, "Well, I really appreciate this opportunity, and it's a great way to label who people are, but can't we be answering these questions, with a little bit of bias because it's who we want to be as opposed to who we actually are? And at the time, the professor kind of shrugged off the question, but afterward he came up to me and he said, if that's the way you think, I think that you would love doing like a 360 feedback assessment. And I'm part of this network of coaches called Marshall Goldsmith Stakeholder Centered Coaches. And that's the approach we have. We use other people to assess leaders' performances as opposed to just doing a coaching with the leader, him or herself, right? So I really like that. I think that, it's like a fun way to get permission to talk about somebody behind their backs, right? You learn about how to give feedback. You learn about how to receive feedback. So that's why I did the Marshall Goldsmith. And, I use that in the coaching I do now. I don't do executive leadership coaching because that's the actual certification. But I just use this 360-degree feedback to gain insights for other people on how they're perceived, because that's super important to me.
Yeah, feedback
Because
is
it helped
critically
me.
important.
Yeah, it helped me a lot. And I did it pretty informally. I went up to friends and family members and I said, "What am I good at? What am I bad at? Don't hold back. Give me feedback." That's what I like for others who are kind of in a place where they're stuck or don't know what to do next as well. So that was what I did for coaching wise. And I just kind of continued to work on different parts of the platform, bring everything together, all with this ultimate mission of, kind of helping other people do what I was doing, right? Experimenting with different areas, different career paths, different types of opportunities in order to understand what truly lit me up, right? So that's, it's a long process if you are to ever work with me, right? It's not the thing that I can say confidently is that unless you're super lucky and you already knew it deep down already, I don't think you discover a purpose in like a 6-week program, right? I think it comes from a lot of trial and error. It comes from a lot of introspection and, sometimes years of work on what not to do. So then you ultimately realize what to do.
Yeah, there's something in there you said that really resonated with me and also reminded me of something that you actually said in your book, which was,
Uh,
I'm going to actually quote it because I have it right here. And that was,
oh,
together we
nice.
are, yeah. So it says, together we are going to get comfy waking up in the morning, get comfy in
Mm,
uncomfy situations, and get comfy in our
yeah.
own skin, and to get comfy with the way we live the rest of our lives. So you want to kind of speak on that a little bit and kind of
Yeah.
talk about your first book, which was Getting Comfy.
Yes. So that was the first book, right? Comfy was a concept I created because those were the 5 pillars of my morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
COMFY stood for something I had to do to calm myself when I woke up. So meditation, yoga, stretching, deep breathing, whatever it was. Something I had to do in regard to openness, journaling, sending a friend a message, right? Whatever I could do to open up my mind. M stands for movement. So gym, jog, walk, whatever. F stands for funny, something that gets me to smile, gets me to laugh right when I wake up. So I know, not to take myself too seriously with the rest of the day. And then Y stands for your choice, right? Your passion, whatever hobby or side project you're working on at the time. So that's what comfy is specifically. But then I think there's 2 other really important things for this word. And one is getting comfy in your own skin, right? How are you going to be comfortable with who you are, accept who you are, own who you are? And then 2, how can you, once you are comfy in your own skin, embrace discomfort? How can you embrace how to push forward and be uncomfortable and experience new things and make changes, right? And that's through using those 5 core elements, right? When you go into something stress and anxiety inducing, whether that is a new sales call or an entrepreneurial venture or a public presentation, right? Do something that calms you down, open up, move, something funny, laugh, and then, something that's your own. That's how you get a little bit more comfy, more confident in situations that are often daunting.
Oh, that's fantastic explanation. It's like, you were the author of that book because I just read it yesterday and you really
Yeah.
nailed it. So, um,
Uh,
talk about in the book, you also talked about how there's a psychological, social, and a physical state, which is really similar to getting comfy or getting, comfy with being uncomfy. And that was
mhm.
Heige. I mean, I have a background in or a master's in counseling, and I never ran across Heige. So maybe you could educate us a little bit more about what Heige is and how it's similar to the process that you're talking about.
Yeah. So I don't know too much about it. I
Hmm.
honestly didn't look into it that much. And my approach to personal development is I try to understand like the psychological and science backed approaches, but I'm more of a storyteller, right? Moving forward, that's where I focus. But that concept, I don't even know how to pronounce it. I always thought it was Huga. It's about bringing comfort into your life. So the way that I think about it is you have a very like hygge type environment if
Hmm.
there are candles and comfortable chairs and very comfortable um, like material around the room, right? You can create an environment of comfort in your life. So that was always my understanding of this concept, and it equates to happiness and being content and um, being very just you know enjoying the present moment, right? I think that's
Hmm.
what it's all about. You truly have an appreciation and a sense of gratitude for the current state that you're in.
Hmm.
And I believe it's either a Dutch or a Danish
Hmm.
concept. I forgot which one.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot of different things out there and they're very useful. So, I mean, I think that we probably utilize that stuff more than what we realize. We just don't
Mhm.
know what the scientific or psychological name for it, or, as we go through life. But you did mention something
Yeah.
to that degree in the very beginning of your book because you kind of threw a few statistics out there that were
Mhm.
especially important to me, and you kind of set us up for the book and kind of how it really was your story that you told on the TEDx stage. But those two statistics
Mhm.
were 41 million Americans experience some type of mental illness in any given year, according
Mhm.
to uh, Health Services Administration and substance abuse folks. And then the other
Yeah.
one was is that millennials, in particular,
Mhm.
are overstressed, and he said that 1 in 5 are experiencing some kind of depression, anxiety, or mental illness.
Yeah.
Can you kind of tell us why you set that up in the very front of the book, and then you were like, "This is not a book about statistics. This is something
Right.
else." So, can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So this is a big reason why I decided to start
Hmm.
doing what I'm doing,
Hmm.
right? Because I am a millennial and I am fortunate enough. I haven't suffered from any mental health um, type of experiences, but I've been around people with it, and I see the pain that they have to go through, and I see how little fixes to daily behavior, how little improvements can help so much in overcoming or managing or understanding some of these issues that they're facing, right? So I wanted to make sure that I was highlighting my peer group because these are the people who I wanted to help the most, right? The reason why I phrased it in the way that I did that, here are some stats and figures, but this is not a book about stats and figures, is because that's the way I like to speak to my audience. I like to say, hey, I'm aware that you could be receiving information in this way, but I'm going to provide it to you in a different way. So it's just a way for me to be very upfront and candid and authentic with the audience and, you know, allow them to know that I am coming at them from an approach that they may not have seen before.
No, that's awesome. And it sounds like I have a I've read how Elrod's book, The
Yeah.
Morning Miracle, and several other variations of that. And you
Right.
also mentioned that book or him in his book
Hmm.
in yours. I also noticed that him and Marshall Goldsmith and Dan Pink had also reviewed your book as
Hmm.
well. But it seemed like Hal had essentially an important impact on you and uh, what you're doing now, and almost like it was one of those authors, like I would say, like Stephen Covey for me, kind of paved the way for
Hmm.
you to kind of go in this direction. Can you kind of tell us like what kind of impact
Yeah.
he has had as a mentor, as an author, even a guy that
Yeah.
has almost been on his deathbed, I think now twice, and it has come through. So,
Yeah. Yep. Such an amazing person, such an amazing story, such amazing books, podcasts, everything. I'll tell you a cool story about Hal, but the origin story is that I heard him on Jordan Harbinger's old podcast, The Art of Charm.
mhm.
He did an interview with Hal Elrod, and I was so amazed by the adversity this man had overcome at such a young age, right? So I'm 25 and he was maybe in his mid 30s at the time. So I related to him more than a lot of the guests that I had heard, because a lot of people were older when they're talking about personal development because they bring life experience into it, right?
Mhm.
So Hal had so much life experience at such a young age. I think he was 19 when he got in that car crash. Um, so that was one reason, and then he explains that when he created the Miracle Morning, it wasn't even related to physical pain. It was this mental, emotional pain. He had financial struggles, and that led him to be stressed and anxious. And just by running, I think, was
Mhm.
the initial recommendation that he was going to, get his mind back on track. And then the running turned into the entire morning routine with the savers. And I said, I want to try this. I want to
Mhm.
become a morning person. I want to be up before everybody else. I want to be different than everybody else. I want to focus on me in the morning because I'm focusing on all these other people throughout the day. So I tried the savers, and the way that I work and how I want you to work as a listener is to try things, right? To try and see what works. So I tried the savers and I said, okay, 3 of these 6 are for me. And how can I create my own thing? Well, I like to, do some meditation, and I also like to do some journaling, but, I don't necessarily like the reading piece in the morning, whatever it was, right? And I created the Comfy from that. So the biggest inspiration for me possible is probably Hal Elrod. And the funny story is that
Mhm.
when I was first starting out, I said to myself, I'm going to get this guy's phone number, right? Like my goal is going to be able to have a text conversation with Hal Elrod. And I read his books and I listened to his podcast and I joined his email list and I joined his Facebook group, and I would send, little things here and there, but never enough to really get a response. Until one day he sent this message to his email list saying that he had a couple of spots left at a live event. And he sent out this big survey, and they were taking 6 out of like the hundreds of thousands of people on his email list. So I said, okay, I think this might be my chance. So I spent all day coming up with amazing responses to these survey questions, and I submitted my application form to go to this live event. And then I got an email from his assistant, and then all of a sudden I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize, and I didn't answer it. And then I got a text message saying that it was Hal Elrod. He had just called me, and I was like, no way, this is true, or this is actually him. I called back right away, and it ended up being him, and we chatted. I went to the live event, and I chat with him every so often. He's been a mentor, a guide ever since. So he obviously provided the endorsement for the Journey to Cloud 9. And that's just a really special thing for somebody like him to do. He's got so much going on. To give a little bit of time to an up and comer is really, really appreciated.
Yeah, I would say that would be pretty interesting to get a call from a guy like Hal early on in my personal development stages, and I know
Hmm.
what those people can really do or have an impact on you. Because, like I said earlier, a lot of them kind of
Yeah.
help pave the way to our development, and it's almost like they lay the foundation for us, and then everything after that is just
Right.
like building blocks. So. Uh,
Yeah.
but there's one thing that I would like to kind of roll back to a little bit,
Yeah.
and I thought that was kind of interesting that you brought your brother up in the book, uh, and your brother is went to a very prestigious school, and you said that he was just a little
Hmm.
bit smarter than you, but he was about 4 years older than you. So
Yeah.
as a brother, who's you kind of look up to, and you kind of feel like he's just a little bit smarter. He's going to a prestigious school, so you're getting ready to be a freshman in high school, and he's going off to Duke. Like, what was that like,
Uh-huh.
and did he like kind of pull you through your childhood, and maybe he kind of helped directed you, just speak about your relationship with your brother a little bit, and kind of, you know that kind of relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I love talking about this. So it's cool because here we are, May 13th, 2020, you and I talking right
Hmm.
now. And my brother and I are actually home. This is his room. I'm literally in his room right now. He's sleeping in a different room. He gave me his room because my dad's using my room as his home office. So it's cool to be chatting about this because we've spent more time together as a family, as he and
Hmm.
I, than probably we would have spent for the rest of our lives, all doing our own thing. But we've been home together for the last month now, and I'll never forget this time for the relationship that it's been able to help, bring back. And not that it was ever not like this, but it even made us closer. But in regard to childhood, like I said, yeah, he was always smarter than me growing up. We were similar in that we have, positive, upbeat personalities, but I was more on the athletic side. He was more focused on his academics. He was more science and math, and I was more English and history. So I always looked at him as a model of, okay, this is, I need to not emulate everything that he's doing, or even, try to be as good as him, but just use him to understand that, getting good grades provides for amazing opportunities
Hmm.
moving forward, and having a positive personality allows for great social experiences, and being in a great friend group, right? So I
Yeah.
definitely looked at him a lot as a role model, as a guide. Moving forward, where he sort of did drag me along a little bit, is he always like gave his friends as resources to me. So when he did go to Duke, he always had me on the phone with them if I ever wanted to call and talk about their internships or their careers in finance and business, right? Because that was a very fulfilling route for these people. So I did chat with them, and my brother was going the medical route. So he couldn't really speak to what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to go into business because that's just what I thought was expected of a kid like me. So yeah, he was always there to provide these people as resources. And then the last thing I'll say is that now my brother is 4 years older than me, so he just turned 30. His story of resilience is one that I will never ever forget.
Hmm.
So Adam is his name. He applied to medical school after graduating from Duke, and he didn't get in. He went into a startup position. He worked there.
Hey, folks, welcome back. Sorry about that. We were just actually speaking about Jordan's brother, who had just gone to Duke, and had applied to medical school. And speaking of resilience, we ended up having some technical failures on our end with Zoom and some local Wi-Fi. And so Jordan's an extremely resilient person, so he's back here to kind of finish that story about his brother and resilience. And he was actually sitting in his brother's bedroom in New York at the time, and he was just going into that story. So I'm going to let Jordan finish up, and welcome back, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kirby. I think you're the resilient one through Zoom and Wi-Fi issues. That's always a challenge, a real testament of somebody's character. So I appreciate you getting through it and getting us back on the air. So my brother is an incredible individual. He's 4.5 years older than me. And like I said, he's so much smarter than me, so much wiser. He went the science route. So he applied to med school after college. He didn't get in. So he went to work for a startup, and then he ended up, doing some business type work. And then a couple years later, he decided he wanted to apply to med school again. Didn't get in. And then he said, okay, let me familiarize myself with the medical world again. So he went into healthcare consulting, still on the business side, but getting more into the medical field. Did that for about 2 years and then said, okay, it's time for me to go to medical school. So he quit his job, a job that he was doing really well at, and he went to a master's program at Case Western in medical physiology. He did a 2-year master's, well, he finished in 1 year, but he did a 2-year master's program at Case Western, took the MCAT again, reapplied for medical school. So this is his 3rd time now. Applied as soon as he could in June, I believe. Waited. Finally gets a couple of interviews, gets put on the wait list, waits, gets put on more wait lists, waits, gets some rejections, gets another wait list, waits, and then finally at the end of February, I call it my Cloud9 moment. I kid you not, it was the happiest I've ever been. The happiest my brother's ever been, probably happiest my mom and dad have ever been. He gets an email from Albany Medical College, upstate New York, saying that he was accepted off of the wait list. So when you think about it, not only was he accepted off of Albany's wait list, but he was accepted off of this 8-year wait list where no matter what happened, he went so many different routes. He did business, he got rejected. He did more business, he got rejected. And then finally, 8 years after first applying to medical school, he was accepted. So to me, in my life, that's the ultimate story of resilience that I've seen up close and personal. So I try to use that mindset when I do things on my own and when I talk to other people about how they have to be patient with the success that they want and deserve. 8 years is a really long time to get what you want for the rest of your life. And it's worth it because now he's going to be a doctor and he's going to help save the world.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It sounds like, I mean, a lot of the things in there you've said have over the last week, patience, resilience. It sounds like I've had these conversations with lots of people, especially, your brother sounds like a man of fortitude and character.
Yeah.
And so that's a phenomenal person to have in your life that's constantly also pouring into you as well. So I think you're a pretty lucky guy there.
Yeah, I definitely am. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's another man in your life that I want to talk about, and that's your dad. I thought it was interesting because you pointed out a huge contrast is what I would call it, because you said, he's a debt collector. However, he's one of the nicest guys and most people wouldn't think a debt collector would be a nice guy. So kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so he's a collections attorney, and he is basically like a legal bookie. People have debts and he has to go and bang on their door and get money, but he doesn't actually do that.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't expect somebody like that to be very kind and caring and compassionate. You would kind of expect this tough guy or gal persona to be very rigid and stern in trying to get money from somebody who owes it to somebody else. But that's not how he approaches his business. He approaches his business in a way that is kind and caring and compassionate. He's as understanding of people's situations as they can be, right? So I get, the really fortunate opportunity. He's been working from home with the coronavirus, and I get to hear some of the phone calls he has. And he collects student debt for the College of New York, right? CUNY, College Universities of New York. And he's on the phone with 18 to 25-year-old kids all day saying that they owe money, and I can hear some of the conversations, and I can hear the kids say how they don't have that kind of money right
Yeah.
now. They can't pay, they can't afford it. And
Mm-hmm.
the contrast is that you'd expect someone like my dad to say, well, do it. Yeah. Do what you got to do, sell this, sell that, try to make your money. But
Mm-hmm.
no, instead he just says, look, this is about life first. I understand if you don't have the money, get it to me when you can, make payments when you can. Focus on your family first. If
Yeah.
that money's going to your family, give it to your family, and then
Mm.
worry about paying, right? So he just gives them the time that he needs. And I think what he says is that it ultimately comes back to help him in the end, right?
Mhm.
These people, he's been doing this for 30 some odd years, right? So these people come back to him years later in their life, and they say, thank you for being so understanding of my situation. Thank you for allowing me that opportunity so long ago. Because now I understand that it's people like you who do realize that there's a humanity side to this business, and there's a humanity side to everything. And I really just appreciated that experience. I've had so many other experiences where people didn't take that into account. So the human first approach is truly what I've learned from him. Whatever's going on in business, professionally, it's always about being a human first and foremost.
Yeah. So I want to ask you again
Mhm.
about another person that's impacted your life, and you
Yeah,
actually talked about in the book. And this kind of
yeah.
comes to the point of where I would say it involves the acronym Comfy, and
Mhm.
M stands for movement.
Yeah.
And you're also wearing, it looks like a soccer shirt, because I think I saw
Right now, yeah.
Chelsea on the front,
Yeah.
and or in Europe it's known as football.
Yeah.
But talk to me about Sergeant Mark. Was it Tribune from the United States Marine Corps, who showed up at one of your practices and kind of took over?
So that was my best friend's practice, actually.
Hmm.
So my best friend Jake, he played soccer at Harvard, and he told me this story. I remember we were freshmen, and I was getting the I was getting the update on what was going on, and it was the first week where he was at
Hmm.
preseason training, and this sergeant came to his practice, and they put the soccer balls away, and they just did extreme, character building, extreme fitness type drills. And the story I remember most is that there's like a river at Harvard,
Hmm.
and you have to run around the river. I think it's something, I don't remember the exact mileage, maybe like 2 miles. And instead of just running around the river, they got into groups, and they had to carry, like, four people had to carry one person around the river and stop like every quarter mile or something, and they had to switch and carry somebody else around the
Yeah.
river, right? So not only were they running 2 miles, which is a 15-20 minute task if it's at a medium pace,
Hmm.
but also they were doing this while carrying somebody, right? So they're trying to do it as quickly as possible. They're carrying somebody. So it just showed the importance of camaraderie, the importance of collaboration, the importance of teamwork, resilience. These characteristics that we talked about before, um, applied to this soccer team, right? So that was a really meaningful experience for him, because when they're on the field playing, they think back to that story, that memory of carrying each other around the river. And when it's late in the game and they need to, carry their teammates because they're tired, or they're, just feeling down, right? They think about that river, and they think of how they literally carried one another. So now they can figuratively carry one another as they go about the rest of their game, right? So that
Yeah,
was cool.
that's
Yeah.
that's awesome. So
Uh,
great lessons from the United States Marine Corps, right?
yes, of course.
Yeah. I also, I want to talk about another letter in the acronym Comfy,
Yeah.
and that was funny. And I think
Uh-huh.
this has a great story.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, but
Uh-huh.
also it has some importance to you, and also has an underlying cause that you have actually been a pretty big part of in the past. And that's when your grandfather had been, I think in the time of the book, had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's a year before that.
Yeah.
And somebody else, I think it was your grandmother, was trying to get used to her hearing aids or something like
Uh-huh.
that. And so there was this conversation that they were having. So
Uh-huh.
can you kind of run us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's just really funny stuff. Trying to make light of a pretty serious and intense situation. My grandpa, he was battling Alzheimer's. My grandma had hearing aids in, and it was kind of like my grandpa was basically hitting on her, but it was the wrong grandma. It wasn't his wife. It was my mom's mom instead of my dad's mom. So the funnier part is that my grandma with the hearing aids, my mom's mom, she didn't even know what was going on because she could barely hear my grandpa talking. So he's there trying to hit on her, saying, all this funny stuff, and she has no idea what's going on. And it just created this really wonderful dynamic that you can't make up, right? So me and my brother were just there cracking up as this all went down. But yeah, my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when I was about 15, and he passed away when I was about 20. So I think those years, I really didn't become the person that I am now until I was maybe 20 years old, 18, 19, 20 years old. And he was already, his mind was gone by then. So he didn't get to see the person that I became. And I think I did become this person because of a lot of his qualities and attributes and stories that I remember of his personality growing up. So I wanted to do something for him and for people who are affected by Alzheimer's, because we all know somebody, whether it's a grandparent, a parent, a friend's parent, whoever it is. We all know somebody that's impacted, and I don't think there's enough support. So I started an Alzheimer's awareness organization at my undergrad, and I just focused on a couple different pillars of volunteering, educating, supporting, and fundraising, all to promote awareness from the undergraduate perspective, right? Because even as a young guy, I knew I had friends who were all affected by the disease. No matter who it was, they knew somebody. So I just want to provide that outlet, and then it led to some cool opportunities for me in the future.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. I mean, as young as you were, be able to do something, and I'm sure that it was scary, trying to start an organization like that, and do something. I mean, you care about it so much, but then there's this, I'm starting something that, I don't know where it's going to go, what's going to happen with it, and probably starts out small, but then grows big. And so, but I would, with that saying said, there's nothing too big that we can't accomplish. And
Right.
just because you're young doesn't mean you can't make a difference in this world. And you've had already a tremendous impact on people's lives. So
Thank you so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
very encouraged by that. So, there was exercise in your book where you asked people what the three characteristics would a commercial about you highlight. What are the three characteristics of a commercial that would highlight about you?
That's a great question. I always ask other people these questions. I don't often answer them for myself. So I think a really good commercial has to have something that makes you laugh, something that makes you think, and something that maybe moves you to tears, right? There's a great Jim Valvano speech, Jimmy V, and those are his three primary ingredients of an amazing day. Something that makes, a day that makes you laugh, makes you cry, and makes you think. So for me, I would try to have a commercial that really highlights those components, like maybe that funny story of my grandma and grandpa, and then maybe a story about something that could move you to tears. How I created something from my grandfather's passing, and then something that gets you to think. I don't know, something else about what you can do in your life in order to honor somebody that you love.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
there's those three components.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And, being a sport here, where do you think you're going to be at in 10 or 20 years? I know most people think a year ahead or 3 to 5 years ahead, but, what direction are you going, and where do you think, if you were to sit down and say, okay, in 10 or 20 years, this is where I think I would be. Well, where is that? What would you be doing?
Yeah, so I do think about this a lot. I think very long term. I try to be patient, but I try to work towards something. So my life's mission actually is to put a pillow underneath every homeless person's head in America. And I haven't done anything really in regard to it now, aside from share stories and volunteer in homeless shelters a little bit. But 10, 20 years from now, I really see myself embarking on this journey, creating maybe like a nonprofit or a startup company that helps with this cause, right? Because I'm trying to play an infinite game, a game that never ends. So it's basically set almost an unachievable goal. And I think, pillows underneath homeless people's heads could be achievable, but that's a lot of pillows. So I need to figure out how to do that. And I think as I do that, I'll be able to make an impact on people's lives, even if it just sounds like it is one pillow. I think that pillow could be the spark plug, the chain reaction starter for such long-lasting change in these people's lives.
Yeah, I mean that's just amazing, man. You just keep giving back. So it's pretty powerful stuff. So with that being said, how do you define true success?
Yeah, so true success to me is living a life according to bridging the gap between who you currently are versus who you know that you could become. So long as you're making decisions in your everyday life that really that are consistent with guiding yourself in this direction, I think you are experiencing true success, right? You're making decisions that are aligned with who you know you could be at all times, enjoying that process, and just basically, having fun while you do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I really like that. It's like you said, it's understanding who you are and who you become and becoming that person. So
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. So there's this quote or this idea that if you cast a stone into the water, you'll create this ripple effect. And so if we were to do that in our life, what would that stone be that you're going to cast that's going to create this ripple effect that just, whether it be resonates with your family, your community, or even future generations? What is it that stone becomes?
I think for me, it's getting people to use their imaginativation to live the life of their dreams, right? So what that means is getting people to imagine, interpret, create, and implement. So the stone that I would throw is fourfold. It has these four pillars in it. I would want it to be a stone that allows people to imagine a life where they are truly fulfilled and content and happy with everything going on. And then I want them to interpret why that's how they want to live. And then I would like for them to create a plan as to how to get there, use their creativity. And then I would like for them to implement that plan. So this stone would be rooted in imaginativation and those four key pillars.
Excellent. Yeah, and that was imagination, interpret, create, and implement.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. That's very
Yeah.
awesome. So take us home. So tell us anything that you haven't told us already that you would like to say with the remaining time that we have, and then where can we find you?
Yeah, I don't think there's too much more to say. We could chat forever because there is a lot to say, but we could really chat
Yeah.
forever about a lot of different key concepts, in the positive psychology space. But I think the last thing that I would say is that my definition of personal development is that it is a never-ending process of this ripple effect I mentioned, imagining who you want to be, interpreting why that's the person you want to become, creating a plan to get there, and then implementing that plan. And what's most important in that definition is that it's never ending, right? You're constantly working on your personal development. Your understanding of the person you want to be can change at all times. So you're constantly reimagining who this person could be, reinterpreting, recreating, and then re-implementing, right? So just don't stop, right? Don't have any complacency. Continue focusing on your growth and, have some fun with it. That's what's most important to me is I like to have fun with everything that I'm doing. That's why I share stories as opposed to just, prescriptive how-to advice. So, I would say that.
Yeah. And where can we find you, Jordan? How can we get your books? Where can you have a landing page or a home base that we can go to so we can keep up with you, social media?
Yeah. So, three different things. One is if you really want to get in touch, LinkedIn is the place to go. It's just Jordan Gross on LinkedIn, and I answer all my messages there. Two would be journeytocloud9.com. And you can get free chapters on there, actually, of my book, The Journey to Cloud 9. And then the third thing would be on Amazon, The Journey to Cloud 9 by Jordan Gross on Amazon.
I'll add that all those are great books. I read them over the course of a weekend, and I think you get a lot of value out of those. So I highly recommend those. And actually, I have to go on and add some reviews. So thank you, Jordan, for being on the show and being a guest and sharing your life with us, and continuing to add value. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirby. I really appreciate it. And be safe and healthy and happy, all right?
All right.